Hey, welcome back, geometry students. So we've just finished our vocabulary video. The second video is real quick. We're just going to do 3 example problems just so you're understanding where you'll see some of these things come up. So we've got 2 marking diagrams examples. So you'll want to maybe pause the video, draw out the picture, and make sure to label those points. And then on the side, we're going to be marking the picture to show that these things are true. Okay, so make sure you've paused the video and written everything out before I continue. So the first thing we want to do is mark that segment CD is congruent. Remember that symbol there is congruent, which is like a really fancy way of saying equal to in length to segment DE. So I'm looking for CD. CD is right here. Right, so I'm going to mark it with 1 tick mark, and I'm going to find DE, it's across the way, and mark that with 1 tick mark as well. And that's how we're going to be representing that those are the same length. And we don't know the exact length. It might be, 3 units or 5 for all we know. So sometimes we'll see segments are equal this way, right? It doesn't always have to be that something is a midpoint. The next one is B is the midpoint of AC. So I'm looking for AC. AC is like right over here. So B is right in the middle, so I'm going to mark that each side, on either side of B, is equal with 2 tick marks this time. This next one, this is going to apply some of our angle vocabulary, okay? So throughout this entire unit 1, the geometry foundations, we're going to be continuing to circle back, right? We're still circling back and talking about midpoints. We're still circling back and talking about segments being equal. So your goal is at the end of this to know all of these vocabulary words, and I could give you a more complex diagram, and you would be able to mark things that are true or tell me different facts based on all the new vocabulary you guys have mastered. So I'm looking for angle BIH. Remember, the middle letter is our vertex, right? So BIH, I'm going to kind of color that when I find it, BIH. So that's the angle, and it's going to be opening up right here. And now we have to find angle FKH. So I'm finding F, going to K, going to H. And it opens up here as well. And I'm going to mark them both with 1 tick mark. That way we see that those 2 angles are exactly equal. And you don't have to have the angles outlined in yours. I think it's just helpful for you guys to see me creating that angle. The next fact is that segment HD is bisecting or cutting in half angle CHE. For these, I find it's helpful to start at angle CHE. So here's angle CHE. So this whole big angle has been cut in half by this line segment. So here's the line segment. It's slicing it right down the middle. So I'm going to mark that this side and this side have the same length, and I'm going to use 2 tick marks there to say that each of those angles are equal. The last one here is saying that segment DF, so I'm finding D and F. So DF is kind of right here. So segment DF and segment HE is right here. It's got a symbol in between them, and if you kind of look at the parts that I've done green, you'll see that they make a nice right angle. I'm going to do a little right angle symbol. So this symbol right here, erase this so you can see it, means that it has a 90-degree angle. In words, it means that they're perpendicular, and we'll come to this word later in a future week. For now, all you need to know is that it makes a right angle. It means that the 2 line segments come together and make 90 degrees. Okay? And then we do that symbol just like that in the picture. The next one is to look at a picture and to try and answer the questions based on the clues that they give us. So the first one is blank is the midpoint of blank. So I'm going to be looking for the same amount of tick marks along a line segment. So I'm seeing that kind of right over here. Okay, so I'm going to say that the point that's in the middle, F, is the midpoint of E to G. I'm going to put my segment notation on top. You also could call that GE, right? Those are the same thing. Doesn't matter which way you call it. This next clue is saying something is bisecting. That's that cutting in half, an angle. So I want to think about the blue clue up here. This was when we bisected an angle, so look back at what that looks like in the diagram, right? You have that angle opening up, and they've got those matching tick marks there. I'm kind of seeing that in the other picture that I'm looking at right over here. This purple angle has this line segment that cuts it in half. So I'm going to say the line segment that's cutting that in half is D to H. Right, I'm kind of starting at D and going all the way up to H. And that's cutting in half angle. I'm going to call that C. Go to my vertex D. Go to my other point E. You also could call that angle EDC. Remember, you always want the middle to be the vertex. That's the most important thing. The next one asks us, what's another name that we could call angle 1? And I'm going to highlight angle 1 in green. Angle 1's right here. It kind of opens up in this section. So notice I can't call it H. Do you see how H is surrounded by all those line segments? There's lots of angles that I could be referring to by H. I could be talking about this angle or this one over here. So there's no way we can only use one letter like that one example I showed you at the beginning of the previous video. So I'm going to start at point C. I'm going to go to H. That's my vertex, so H is always the middle. And then I'm going to go all the way up until it looks like D is that next point. Okay. You could also call that angle DHC if you prefer. And then this last one, remember, we're looking for a 90-degree angle, which has that little right angle symbol that kind of looks like a square. And I'm going to highlight it in pink, maybe, have a different color. It's right over here, so that's where we see the right angle symbol. And I'm just going to say that the line segments are making a right angle. So I'm kind of looking at maybe C to A is how I could refer to that. And then maybe BI is the segment that is making a right angle. Now notice I could talk about B to J, right? I could just as easily kind of extend it all the way to J. That's fine too. There's typically a couple different ways you can talk about them. The very last problem we're going to do is an angle and algebra example. So remember, all throughout the year we're going to be weaving in this geometry, or this algebra into geometry, excuse me. First one says measure. That's a little symbol that means the measure of an angle. Sometimes we use the little m, sometimes we just say angle FGJ, kind of depends. So FGJ, that angle, the degrees that it is represented by 3x minus 5. So that's kind of saying we don't know how many degrees for sure. We have to figure out what x is first. And then the next angle, JGH, that angle is x plus 27 degrees big. And they're also telling us that the line segment, GJ, is cutting in half. I'm going to highlight it maybe in green. Angle F, or actually maybe I'll do a different color. I've already used green. Maybe I'll do orange. So let me just change that. So angle FGH, that whole big angle is cut in half. That means my yellow angle and my green angle are exactly the same size. So I'm going to mark them with 2 tick marks each. And if I want to find anything, they're asking me specifically what is the measure of angle FGJ. That's that yellow angle, the one over on the left side. If I want to find anything, I have to first find x. Second, I'm going to plug into angle FGJ, which is, remember that yellow one, it's 3x minus 5. And so I'll find x and I'll find the degrees by plugging it in. Now I need an equation that's true. So looking at my clues, I'm told that those two angles are exactly equal. So I'm allowed to say 3x minus 5 is equal to x plus 27. This is really, really similar to some problems we saw with midpoints and setting up an equation saying that the two line segments were equal. I'm going to subtract x on both sides. 2x minus 5 is equal to 27. I'm going to add 5 on both sides. And it looks like my new equation is 2x is equal to 32. Divide by 2 on both sides. And it looks like x is equal to 16. So I found x. Now it tells me I need to find the yellow angle. So remember that yellow angle is 3 times the x value, take away 5. So 3 times 16, let's see, that's 30, 48, take away 5. It's telling me it's going to be 43 degrees big. And that's our final answer. So you guys are all set up for Wednesday. So Wednesday we'll check in on what you've learned. We'll see if there's questions, and then you'll have some time to be working on your angles homework. See you guys then.